Open the extraordinary council meeting. Sorry, I'll just wait. Warren, you coming up? Thank you. And we will open with our karakia. Want to lead us? Yeah.
Ai mai inoi tātou whakatakata hou ki te uru whakatakata kia mā taratara e he aki ana i hauhu ti.
Thank you. I've got no apologies, but we will note taku for lateness. So I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Trillin. All those in favour? Those against, carried. Have I got any conflicts of interest declarations from anybody this morning? No? Okay, so we go straight to our recommendation, 5.1, the Audit and Risk Committee. I'm going to move it to put it on the table, seconded by Councillor Waddle. And we're going to hand over to you, Warren, for a quick comment.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Good morning, councillors. This agenda item was considered by the Audit and Risk Committee last week. Management presented a paper to us which amended the what's known as the Treasury Risk Management Policy. And this amendment was required really to facilitate the changes in the long-term plan and increased some of the limits there. So I think without sort of going into a lot of detail, and I'm happy to answer or respond to any discussion, but there weren't significant changes there to the policy, while increasing the percentage of the net debt to revenue, which is the key percentage there weren't a lot of other changes. With the management changes, there were some changes around titles in the management team that are able to give approvals. But certainly all there were some minor changes around what is hedged. That's a term which enables some of the interest rate to be fixed and some of the interest rate in which the council has to be floating. So there were some very minor changes to those percentages. So, you know, really, principally, this is an update to the policy that was required by the LTP process.
Thank you. Any questions? No, straightforward. Most of you were at the meeting. So all those in favour? All those against? Carried. So we'll close the meeting at 8:23, and I'm going to hand over to Councillor Trillin. We've got a little bit of space.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Puna Kōrero meeting for the 21st of March 2024. Just noting we've come out of extraordinary council meeting and already opened with karakia. I'm going to move straight through to apologies. I haven't received any apologies. I do have a note from Taku that he may have to leave early depending on how long this goes for. So I'll put those, all those in, oh, sorry, I need a seconder. Councillor Duncan, all those in favour? Opposed? That is carried. We're moving through to public forum. We don't have any public forum today, so on to conflict of interest declarations. Are there any conflicts of interest? There do not appear to be any. Moving through to notification of extraordinary business. There are no items of extraordinary business, so confirmation of minutes from the 29th February 2024 meeting. I'll move those to put them on the table. I have a seconder, Councillor Hayward. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There do not appear to be any. I will put those, all those in favour. Opposed? That is carried. Okay, moving through to our report, 7.1, temporary road closure. I'll move the report to open it for discussion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hayward. So I think this is pretty straightforward. So I'll just open the floor straight away to if there are any questions on this paper. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, my one relates to page 12, costs. On item 21, it says if we close the identified roads for Anzac Day events, it will cost $9,300. The event organisers are responsible for paying this. But then we go on to the next one, the Pacific Night Market will cost $9,600, but no reference to who pays for that. Who does pay for that?
Can we get clarification from Mike on that? Or Ruben?
Through the chair, that is a shared service that we're running with Kāinga Ora. When Kāinga Ora wants to run their surveys of the community, they will pay for it. On the occasions when we're doing engagements with the community, we will pay for it, and every now and then there'll be another provider who will want to jump in there. So that's a shared cost, and we could break that down more to be more accurate in terms of the cost that it will incur to council.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a breakdown actually of the costs.
If we could send it in an email, maybe, perhaps would that be the way to do that?
Cool, that sounds good. All right, thank you, Mike. Councillor Filo.
Are you just following on from Councillor Duncan? Is that cost mainly made up of traffic management for, is that what it is?
Ruben?
Through the chair, that's their monthly night market, so it comes in at less than $1,000 per market. So most of that is coordination, time. It's a bit of hireage for the hall. It's not a huge cost to hold those events.
Oh, I mean, given that this is about road closures, I just wanted to clarify that that wasn't about a traffic management cost then, because I wouldn't see why the hall would have anything to do with
There's a
this
small few car parks in the front of the hall that get closed off where the food trucks go, but it's a small piece of work there. It's not major road closures or anything.
All right, are there any further questions or comments from councillors? There do not appear to be any, so in that case, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. We'll move through to item 7.2, the proposed long-term plan 2024 to 34 consultation document. So just to open things up, I'll move this to put it on the table. Councillor Leggett second, thank you. And I'll invite Nick to introduce this paper.
Thank you, and through you, Chair.
Oh, sorry, 1 second, Nick. My apologies. Noting a chair's recommendation in addition to this, I'll just come back to you, Ross. I'm also proposing that we agree to delegate to the Mayor and Chief Executive the ability to approve changes to the consultation document as a result of final feedback from the Office of the Auditor General, and we'll hear about that. So just noting that as a chair's recommendation with it. So I'll just confirm with Ross for seconding that. We're all good? Okay, cool. My apologies. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Tēnā koutou rangatira mā. As you know, we've had the development of this long-term plan consultation document for the last 12 months. It includes the draft infrastructure strategy, the draft financial strategy, as well as the supporting information which forms part of the draft long-term plan and informs the consultation document. While we were developing the long-term plan, we had a change of government, and with that, a significant change in the way we manage water. That meant that we had to shift, and luckily we had the foresight to predict that event was likely, and we managed our way through that over that 12 months. In recognition of that from the government, they gave us options to either extend our time or to audit the consultation document after consultation. But because we'd done that planning and preparation, we decided to progress with our audit and maintain the scheduled adoption of our LTP on the 27th of June 2024. The audit includes a hot review through the Office of the Auditor General, which you will hear about soon, and that's nearing completion, and the feedback of that is incorporated into the consultation document you have in front of you today. The final audit opinion will be issued following this meeting and included as part of the consultation document ahead of formal consultation. This is the reason for the amendment that you've heard this morning. Officers took the consultation document to the Audit and Risk Committee last week and were provided with an update from EY. The main changes that have come through since this meeting are not substantial and can be noted on page 6 of the document, in which the uncertainties we are facing have been made clearer up front. We have also ensured that we have been clearer with our community on what we are formally consulting on, which is curbside collection, and what we are informing our community about, which is water meters, potential future requirements for organic waste. We're going out to consult with our community on our plan from the 26th of March to the 26th of April. We have various events around the city, and our approach is to partner with groups wherever possible, go to our community and utilise both face-to-face and online tools. We appreciate all the effort and work that our staff have done, that you councillors have done, and that to present this consultation document to you this morning. It's been a combination of a lot of effort. You'll now hear from Warren Allen from Audit and Risk, and thereafter Ernst Young. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. And yes, so just so councillors are aware, so I'm now going to invite Warren Allen up to the table to speak, followed by Sam Nicole, and then we'll open for questions and discussion after that. Over to you, Warren.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning once again. Yes, as Nick has indicated, the draft consultation document on the long-term plan came to the Audit and Risk Committee last week. And in my report, I would divide it into two sections. I'm in a position to sort of give councillors an indication as to sort of what is happening in the local government sector here in New Zealand. And this, without doubt, has probably been the most difficult environment in which a council has been asked to prepare a long-term plan. As Nick indicated, there was a change in government partway through, a change in view as to how water assets were to be treated, and are really in an environment, an economic environment that's very unstable, if you like, and has shifted throughout the last few months as you've led to the production of this CD. But as was our experience at Audit Risk Committee the last time, 2021, when an LTP was done, this council is very fortunate in that the work done by management, the planning, the preparation of this document is very, very high class. And one of the challenges that the Audit Office or the Office of the Auditor General is having in finalising the report is that you're sort of early out of the blocks. There's not many councils around New Zealand that are as far advanced and ready to go with their consultation document as you are here. So I understand that there's going to be finalisation, and Sam Nicole from EY will confirm this, of the audit report tomorrow, Friday. and that will complete the exercise. We at Audit and Risk Committee last week sort of delved into to the document. I am aware of the minor changes that were made following that hot review, and certainly personally I support those changes. I think in terms of clarification of what risks are faced around this long-term plan, and also clarity on exactly what you're seeking consultation from the community and what you're advising them is most helpful. So certainly the Audit and Risk Committee were happy to recommend to Council the approval of this consultation document, and Chair, I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that councillors have.
Cool, thank you very much, Warren. And if you're happy to remain there for the duration of this paper for councillors to have questions, that'd be fantastic. For now, I'm going to hand over to Sam from EY, who is joining us remotely via Zoom. Kia ora, Sam. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me all right?
Are you able to try speaking again, Sam?
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Excellent. Look, I think Nikki and Warren provided a really good summary of the journey Council's been on with this process, in particular the changes related to water reform, so I won't hash those. But officers have prepared the consultation document, related documents incorporated by reference, which are included in your pack, and modelling supported by the program of workshops and discussion with members to get you to this point. Our work's focused on auditing the consultation document and whether it gives effect to the legislative requirements to enable effective public participation in Council's 2024 long-term plan. I'm pleased to say we're close to the conclusion of this process, with the document before members this morning reflecting the satisfactory resolution of our comments. The Officer of the Auditor-General runs a supporting hot review process on consultation documents subject to audit, and the feedback from this has been reflected in the CD. We've proposed an unqualified audit report on the consultation document, including emphasis of matter paragraphs on 3 areas, 2 of which were in the previous round of the LTP's consultation document. These are risks to the delivery of the planned capital program. This reflects the significant uplift of planned water spending in the 10 years of the LTP, approximately 20% on the last plan, and the increased estimated spending requirement on water assets over the 30-year infrastructure strategy period. And just highlighting that there's, in our view, risks that these may not be able to be delivered, which may, over time, present risks to levels of service or funding requirements for Council. The second one's uncertainty over 3 waters forecasts. Council primarily relies on the ageing of assets as the basis for condition assessment and planning for its 3 water assets. Over the past 3 years, work's been undertaken to confirm the appropriateness of Wellington Water's approach and to supplement this with other activity informing asset planning. The reliance primarily on ageing subject to risks that actual condition may not be reflected by age, which may mean that there's an unanticipated earlier need for renewals or risks to level of service. And the third matter, which is new, relates to the Eastern Porirua development. Council's planned reflecting their partnership with Kāinga Ora and Ngāti Tawa for a 25-year project, including a large portion of government funding, which will assist Council in developing the infrastructure to support the development. The central government funding for this has only been secured for an initial 2 to 5 year period, with future business cases required to secure that funding. Between a change of government and the overall outlook period, there is some risk that things may change and Council's plans may need to change should that eventuate. And so our opinion will refer to Council's disclosure of the possible risks to future funding. So as Warren noted, the OAG will consider the results of our work and proposed audit report tomorrow. If they concur with our proposed report and the associated disclosures in the consultation document, we expect they'll approve our draft report for issuance, allowing the Council to continue on its consultation process.
Cool, thank you very much, Sam. So those are the briefings that we have. I'll open now to questions and discussion. Councillor Hayward.
Ata Maria kia ora, mātua upoko, mihi kai konihita katoa. First of all, mihi to the kamahi for working on this material thus far. I have a couple of questions. One may have to wait with regards to the engagement plan, but I'll hold that until the appropriate time. But with regards to the letter from the Minister of Local Government back in December of last year, where the government had detailed proposals for councils in dealing with the then repeal of what was Three Waters affordable water reforms, they provided a number of options to councils. Can I just confirm that our council take on board any of the recommendations that the Minister recommended in that letter?
My recollection of that was mainly that that letter provided options for councils to defer consideration of an LTP. We have chosen not to pick up that option. We've got so many changes that need to be made. It would be a very large annual plan anyway, and the internal view was that once the new water reform process has revealed itself in its entirety, we are likely to have to do another LTP. Whether that's in sequence or out of sequence is probably too hard to predict at this stage. So we didn't pick that option up. I think there were some other associated options about quite how to handle the LTP, but we decided internally, and we did talk about it at a workshop, that we would not pick any of those options up. Largely, they've been picked up by councils that were affected, the East Coast councils that were affected by the cyclone. And I think, I know some of them did. I know in this region only South Wairarapa has chosen that path for similar reasons as the East Coast Council. So no, we haven't picked up any of those options.
Thank you. Next question. With regards to the commentary from EY regarding the conditions around that they have highlighted that will go to the OAG for their consideration, have we not already made allowance in terms of reference to those issues within our funding assumption section of the LTP already? So we're already working on the presumption of those recommendations already being in place, being covered in terms of our disclosure within the LTP.
Warren?
Chair, I may be able to help there. What Sam referred to, and he referred to those as emphasis of matter, and that's a sort of technical term that auditors use. And what Sam is suggesting to the OAG for approval tomorrow is that in his audit report, he draws attention. So anybody who reads the audit report, the emphasis of matter directs the reader back into the consultation document and saying these are three items which are so significant and there's uncertainty around them, and i.e. being water reform and the East Porirua redevelopment. They are so significant, and there's judgments taken within the consultation document. So it's not an audit qualification, it's not a recommendation, it's more as saying be aware of these significant matters that exist within the consultation document when you're reading it and reading the audit report. It's quite a common technique. Most councils will have an emphasis of matter throughout the country on the water treatment within their LTPs. So, Warren, thank you for the explanation. Just so I'm absolutely clear for those who are probably watching in here, this information that is being alluded to with those areas of focus,
are already in our documentation. It is merely signposting for the attention of the reader from their perspective to take more time to consider those as part of their consideration of the full plan. Councillor
Hayward, 100% correct, yes.
Okay, hopefully everybody on YouTube gets that too. I'll withhold the question with regards to the engagement plan, but I do want to come back to that as well.
All right, if you want to speak to it now.
Okay,
while you've got
so
the mic.
I will do that. The question I had was that I appreciate the considerable amount of work that has been done by Kaimaki with regards to the engagement plan, and have given my feedback previously privately, but I will just reinforce that I think that a lot of work has been done in terms of trying to go to groups, trusted faces and trusted spaces, which is an important way of rebuilding trust with the community in terms of its engagement approach. One area that I didn't get a chance to kind of feed back into during the workshops was around how we engage with those with direct lived experience of accessibility challenges. And I'm hoping that officers can give some clarity as to what proactive steps council is doing to engage with that community with regards to the LTP.
Nick?
Yeah, thank you. I might ask Mia to come up and answer that question, if that's okay, Mia.
Through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. We are doing a couple of things in regards to accessibility. So we have reached out to a number of groups as part of our wider consultation. We have also been developing a video which should be released shortly in New Zealand Sign Language, just describing the proposals. So those are kind of that's the one big thing that we are doing, and of course using our existing networks to reach out to groups specifically. But as noted, we have a really big engagement program and we can't do it all. So in terms of arranging specific events for the community with accessibility issues, we're open to it, but we don't currently have anything on the program.
Cool. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Next, I've got Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Chair. We've been through a number of machinations around this, and I'm really comfortable with where we've got to and appreciate the feedback that we've had from everyone. I just wanted to ask Sam, when you were talking about the delivery of the CapEx program and the risks around that, I particularly wanted to focus on water. Did you? My understanding was that Wellington Water were confident about delivery, and as much and all as we know from past practice or that we don't deliver all of our CapEx programs, but we have managed to in the water area. So did you talk to Wellington Water about their confidence around delivering our CapEx in the water area?
Well, thanks for the question, Ross. Yes, you did, and I think that's a good observation. Alongside Wellington Water asked for a higher CapEx program than ultimately you settled on due to funding constraints as well. The emphasis of matters born out of the long period and sustained need. So we've gone from 3 years ago saying 800 million in 10 years to now, north of $1 billion before inflation over 10 years. That's still a significant ramp up of activity that has uncertainty. And whilst the infrastructure strategy included in your pack describes an unconstrained requirement for 3 water assets over the 30 years to 2054, that number's in excess of $6 billion. So by its very nature, the level of work required has so much uncertainty that we think it's appropriate that people take that away, because it might pose challenges to council over the planning horizon that you're dealing with for the long-term plan.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Mayor Baker.
It's more of a comment than anything else. Thank you, Sam, and Warren, for getting to this point where we will have an audited document to go out. And I want to thank staff. It's been a really hard plan. This is I think the toughest long-term plan I've done sitting at this table with our figures. So it's really just a thank you, and to make sure that people out there, as you say in YouTube land, actually come to the consultation and tell us what they think, because it's going to be a tough one for all of us, but I really just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. Are there any further questions, Councillor Hayward?
I held off from questions to make a comment now. I think my views resonate with everybody else around the council with regards to the gloominess of the projections and our expectations around the future going forward for the RTP. I am, like the Mayor, full of praise for officers having to work through such uncertainty. I would hope that, and this is my message to the community at large, and I'm going to say something that I said in the last RTP plan. There is a tradition within Māori and Pacifica that to say nothing is to show our dissent. And yet in a Western-based democracy that this RTP sits inside of, to say nothing would be considered an assent, support. And this is where I think we must double down in communicating to the community. Do not let your dissent be mistaken. Please, please, please submit on this. The issues are way too big for this to be ignored. And for somebody who lives in Titahi Bay, where the consequences of water infrastructure investment are measured by the number of days between wet weather discharges, the important decisions that have an impact on that, again, are too important to just let lie in silence. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Weehapi.
Thank you. Following on from that and Mayor Baker's comments, I just want to acknowledge the staff for the work they've done thus far. I remember in the workshop too, I was very vocal around keeping, and this is just to do with the consultation document itself, nothing else. I was quite vocal in keeping it simple and less wordy. Personally, I still think it is very wordy, and I'm not convinced that it's incredibly user-friendly for the entire community to either read and or understand. I know we understand it, and the base of people in our community do understand it. So I'm actually really thankful that there's the online engagement hub, which we can actually steer people to, and obviously work pretty hard within the consultation, face to face as a council. As Mayor Baker said, this is probably the most critical LTP to date. And so hopefully we will get our consultation and engagement done pretty well. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments from anybody? Don't appear to be any. Just very quickly from me, I just wanted to comment on the fact I think this is a really strong final document. We've looked at a number of different versions of this now through workshop, through audit and risk. I've been really happy that I think it's improved at every iteration. It's gotten much better every time. The quality of the information in this document is very, very good. And I really do hope that a lot of people read it. I understand that a 20-plus page document can be a bit intimidating, but if you do spend time getting into it, the quality is really good. It does address those big questions. I know I will find this very useful to use when we're going around and talking to people. And so I just want to thank officers for the work they have done on that, and the fact that our feedback has very clearly been taken on board and incorporated in, which has been really good. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with this. And I think when it's supplemented by the further information we've talked about, the shorter documents, the cheat sheets and things like that, I'm confident that we're well equipped to go out and have some tough conversations with the community. And that's really positive. So with that, I think I'm about to move to vote on this. So as a reminder, we've got all 9 recommendations up on the screen that everybody can see at the moment, including the final Chair's recommendation that wasn't in the original report, just giving the Mayor and Chief Executive the ability to make any small changes as a result of feedback from the Office of the Auditor General, and obviously the rest of the recommendations relating to approving the supporting information for our long-term plan. So with that, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, everybody. We will now move through to item 7.3, Regional Collaboration on a Water Services delivery plan. I will move that to put it on the table. Do I have a second? Councillor Duncan. Thank you very much. I will. Do officers want to speak to this before we get into it, Mike?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just to say that while we're not asking for a significant decision here, we are sitting on a path. The path is full of uncertainty still with Three Waters, but we are charting our own course. We think we have some good leaders and the right people around the table to help us chart that course. There are a number of off-ramps along the way with this course, but as one of the shareholding councils of Wellington Water Limited, those off-ramps are perhaps are fewer for us than maybe for some other councils. So uncertainty is the key word, but again, I think we're on the right path and with the right people around the table. Have you taken any questions? Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Cool, thank you very much, Mike. I'll open the floor for questions. Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora no, he patai. You mentioned, Mike, off-ramps. With regards to on-ramps, where are the other councils in their positioning in terms of supporting going forward from this point? Because we all will rise and fall together, and I look over the hills to the north and the east, beyond our boundaries, as to whether or not they're supportive of wanting to go down this path.
So at this stage, the Wellington Water shareholding councils, as well as Kapiti, Horowhenua, and the Wairarapa councils are all around the table. The drivers for the ones in the Wairarapa and up the west coast, Kapiti and Horowhenua, aren't the same as ours. So they have even more uncertainty than us. Winnie and I have been engaging with them. And they're very keen to talk about those off-ramps as well and to understand whether or not they will be in or out of this. At the moment, everybody's in, but as I say, uncertainty, and we will see down the track as to what the final product looks like, Councillor.
Okay. Second question. With regards to, by comparison to the previous government's approach around negotiation, they provided inducements to opt in and provide revenue for us to use on work. What good faith has central government, the current government, given the whiplash of change that's happened since October 14, and as has been evidenced by the previous item on this council meeting, the additional uncertainty that has compromised what would have been a relatively smooth LTP process?
So I just say that we are well engaged with the relevant departments and with the regulator, and indeed with ministers have given us their support. There's not money thrown around. They're being very clear about that, but there are other support in terms of regulatory support and a policy support from DIA. So, yep, we're in a different environment now, and we're largely on our own when it comes to the finances, but the support's going to come to us in other ways. I just leave it at that, Councillor.
Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, my question was of a similar vein, really. Surely the first principle has to be that central government puts money into this, because this is totally unaffordable by ratepayers, absolutely unaffordable. And before any decisions are made, that has to be a first principle, doesn't it, surely?
So I can't make a statement on behalf of the government, Councillor, but what I can say is they've been very clear that isn't what they're going to do. They've been very abundantly clear that we have to come with our own solution.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was what we were getting under the last government as well. Page 359 in the MOU there, it talks about the advisory group having no formal decision-making powers. But then on page 361, it says that no business may be transacted if the quorum is not present. Well, surely they can't transact business anyway, can they, if they're not allowed to make formal decisions?
Oh, so there are some operational business like economic modelling, legal advice. So that's what that's referring to specifically. In terms of its ability to make any decisions that commit this council, they have no delegated authority whatsoever. So they must come back here. We will come back here for any significant decisions.
Councillor Filo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the recommendations in this report. it was just really a question to you, Mike, with regards to, what I read, it seemed like it's quite fairly similar to what we have now, apart from, obviously there'll be more councils potentially involved, and it will be a financially stable, independent entity. My question is, what, in your opinion, what other things will be different? Like how else will this be different to what we have now?
We won't only
Like the regulation, is there going to be tighter regulations or constraints?
So I would say there already is tighter regulation around environmental regulation, and that's not going to change. We do anticipate economic regulation coming in at some point down the path. A lot of that is uncertain, Councillor, because we haven't yet built the model. We're still doing the economic analysis. So it's going to be a bit of a journey, and a journey of discovery that we'll have to come back to you regularly with stuff as we find it out. But, essentially, where we're headed with respect to a CCO that is kind of off balance sheet with balance sheet separation, that's kind of still where we're heading.
I'll also invite Wendy to speak to this as well.
Yeah, so there are 3 bills in the government's future. Well, one has already passed, the repeal of the previous legislation is Bill 1. Bill 2 is the work that's underway right now, and that is related to this water services plan and giving the ability of councils to develop an entity and describe what that could be. So it's a little cart before horse in the sense that it's only in the 3rd bill that they actually will describe the entity, which will be not quite, it will be a form of council-controlled entity, but not as we currently know it. It will have the ability to own its own assets, and it will have the ability to be off-balance sheet, therefore enabling it to borrow money. So in its own right. So that those changes are quite significant. And theoretically, that means that, the debt capacity for a scale solution is better. So those things, that is the proposition anyway. So that is part of the journey that we are on to work out whether that is likely in this aggregation to work for this set of councils. So we're probably all worried about our own liabilities, the other councils that might be part of the club, their liabilities, and what might flow to our, ratepayers or users. So there is a lot of work to be done, and Mike's completely, you only have to listen to the media. This government is saying no financial help, no backing, no guarantee. The financial modelling that is revealed out of those first water services plans will tell us all quite a lot about how feasible that position is long term. So we thought we were close to the finish line. It's just that the finish line's just moved out a bit further, and we've got a different sort of a different path to get there, I guess. So it's a way to go yet, but we're having to design a process that preserves. Every council feels like us. You don't want to be part of a club that's not going to work. So this process is very carefully keeping all decisions back with each member council, and there are these phases that we're saying, let's do a sort of first iteration, work out whether this is even good on paper, and then second iteration we'll work out a bit more detail and be able to work out whether there's some fish hooks in our overall proposal. So, it's worth joining the club. can't win if you're not in. But you know, we will be proceeding with caution because actually our responsibility is for the people who live here. So.
All right, thank you very much. Next, I've got Councillor Leggett.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, I absolutely support the motion. We have to move forward, but you know what worries me, and sorry to bang on about this as others have, is costs into the future. I mean, there were 400 people or whatever it was in DIA working on this. If all that IP has been preserved and the economic modelling and all the rest of it is there, that might be great. But Mike, you were talking about economic modelling and legal advice, and all I can see is dollars, 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 and government saying, sorry, there are no more dollars. And how the hell are we going to pay for this? We've just been talking about a long-term plan and a rates increase of 17.5% for next year. And I'm just concerned, and I guess it'll become more obvious as we go forward, how much money we actually have to spend on this. You're talking about, you know, even if you get 3 people in, they have to be paid for. And I don't think 3 people are going to be enough to get to it might be the first iteration might be okay, but the second iteration, when you have to start talking about the detail, and the devil is always in the detail, as you know, where is the money going to come from to give us the advice about what we should do? I mean, you know, yeah, well, it will come from us as ratepayers. I mean, all of it's going to come from us as ratepayers and taxpayers ultimately anyway, but in order to get there, I just worry that it's going to cost a hell of a lot more money.
In the first instance, we do have some money left over from the previous reform.
How much?
About 400,000 left over from that, which we're obliged to spend on water reform activities. So the department is encouraging councils to reprioritise that spend. What we were going to spend it on has probably shifted somewhat. So we do have some money sitting there currently. There may be some advantage in being first cab off the rank in terms of some of the development. We're somewhat hopeful about that, but no commitments have been made. So you're right. What I have heard the minister in the media say, you know, this is what councils asked for, and there were certainly a large number of councils in the Communities for Local Democracy grouping who actually asked for water to be returned to them and to be, you know, architects of their own destiny. Well, that's what's happened. So, you know, there may be some eyes widening now that has actually happened and quite what that means, because there are those regulatory pressures that are going to come on, not just the environmental and water quality issues, but also the economic regulations. So actually, it's going to be a tight squeeze for any water service delivery agency. So, yeah, you know, my best guess is scale matters in these things, but we have to proceed with caution just to make sure that it is affordable.
Can I add something? If I can just add to that, we are talking closely with DIA to see what we can extract from what they've already invested. So we've got 3 or 4 of us that are actually kind of trying to get what we can, so that's not a lost sunk cost.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and on that point around this, a lot of councils asked for this. It's frustrating that obviously our council wasn't one of those, and I suspect that a number of councils that felt like they were being the architects of their own destiny now feel like architects of their own demise. But it is what it is. That's where we're at. Councillor Hayward.
Sorry, apologies, Mr. Chair. I realised I have 3 questions that I forgot to ask, so I'll ask them now. In reading the documents, I didn't see that there was any opportunity for risk assessment from our position. Can officers give some commentary on where our risks lie and the severity of those?
I'll have a first go and then Mike can have a second go at that one. We face risk no matter what. I mean, we know the risks that are presented in this long-term plan. We're approaching our debt cap and we are unable to even invest in the water projects that we would like to invest in right now. So we are facing a set of risks right now. Sort of tantalisingly out of reach at the moment is the prospect of a different kind of water delivery agency that might improve those risks. The risks that sit in here really sit in affordability for households and businesses, I would think, in our community, because it's pretty obvious there's only one place to go, whether you're a taxpayer, a ratepayer, or a user of water services. You end up paying in one of those 3 paths, don't you? So I think there are a set of risks, over the next 10, 20 years for, our urban areas where how affordable will they be? We know the Wellington Water shareholders are facing, most of us, Wellington City has a set of risks, the Hutt Valley's got another set of risks, and we've got some sitting in our network as well. So at the moment we've got the only compliant wastewater treatment plant in the region. None of this is good. As a country we have failed to invest not just in water assets but in others. So there's some costs for infrastructure coming along the way, and I think a lot of them sit with us as users and payers in various forms for them.
Did you want to?
Thank you. This whole thing is about risk, and I think the biggest risk for us is the risk of doing nothing. It's clearly not a risk that we can accept. So for us, I see the risk on 3 levels as we go forward from here. There's some strategic risk around stuff like what does this do to our balance sheet? So we're actively thinking about that now and going to model where we lead to around this down the track. Secondly, there's a bunch of operational risk, and Councillor Leggett's already raised deliverability. So we think in New Zealand we need 11,000 people to be working in the water sector to do what we need to be done. There's currently 4,000, and we don't really have a path for how we're going to get there. And finally, we've talked about affordability risk, right? We tend to focus on that in the first instance, but those sorts of risks are a suite of risks, and there needs to be a set of approaches, whether we accept those risks, adapt to those risks, mitigate those risks, or avoid those risks. That's how we need to approach this. And in terms of the advice that we'll be coming back to the advice that we're bringing back to you will be very much framed in a set of advice that talks about how we're going to mitigate those risks to our community. But I do think that the biggest risk for us now is the risk of doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. Next question is, how confident can officers be in the timeframes that have been suggested, particularly around central government's legislative agenda, and noting that in the previous government there were already delays in terms of the implementation of the legislation that has now been repealed?
As confident as you can be, which is not very. We were quite confident about the previous governments, and they failed to deliver on their time frame. Politics is an uncertain business, as you observers and participants in the process will know, so many things can change. All I can say is that the intent of this government, they've delivered so far on repeal. They are determined, and I can see them hitting their mid-year timeframe for the second bill. Quite a lot of complexity sits in the third bill, which is, mid next year on target. But elections loom every 3 years. So, the incentives on the government to deliver on that, and they're definitely showing willing to do that. So, I don't know, we go with what we've got in front of us. So, and we will certainly advise you if there is slippage on there's slippage on those timeframes. But, yeah.
Thank you. Third question. Where does our role as councillors come in terms of our these negotiations, particularly around wanting to establish some hard lines? I'm pretty sure that some of the things that have been mentioned around balance sheet separation is, I would think, a hard line for our council in terms of wanting to proceed forward. When do we get that opportunity to actually talk about that?
Realistically, we probably only get to talk about it when we've got some legislation, some proposed legislation introduced. Ahead of that, so this first phase that the MOU commits us to is basically saying we'll come up with a concept design, and we will bring that back to you. But there will be some principles sitting in there, and I suggest, as you're saying, that balance sheet separation is one of those hard lines for us all. Certainly the Wellington Water shareholding councils will be aspiring for that. So we will have that opportunity to discuss it as part of that first phase, but we probably, in any meaningful sense, we can certainly submit on legislation introduced and make our point clear. The pathway does seem to be going that way right now. That's certainly what the National Party talked about in their policy pre-election, and I see they don't seem to be withdrawing from that proposal. So, but you're right, that would be very important to us at Porirua City Council.
If I may have the opportunity to just give comment, I don't have any questions, but in asking these questions, what was going through my mind was actually the risk of further delay in terms of an actual sustainable solution. And I know that councillors will know my view about, wanting to have this resolution in the previous term. And now we are going through we're going back to the dance again. And we don't know necessarily if our dance partner in the beehive is actually going to, dance us nicely through the whole night. The delays impact our communities. And I don't want to have to go through that and explain that explicitly. But in terms of not being able to establish hard lines, balance sheet separation is definitely one for me, and relaying this to the members of the committee who are going to be going there. Other is assurances from central government around guarantor of any borrowings that this new entity has in place. Or certainly some mechanism which gives certainty to the ratings agencies that these entities are able to sustainably borrow to meet the needs of additional investment over the next 30 years or any period of time moving forward is an ongoing concern. There are others I can happily talk to the representatives of, but we need to start that positioning now, not once it comes back to us, and make us feel like, to use the words of the Prime Minister, grateful for what we get. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Are there any further questions or comments? Councillor Leggett. Sorry, Councillor Waddle.
I feel like I put my hand up about 20 minutes ago and I obviously didn't get acknowledged. We've been bashing this around for a long time, far longer than we actually bashed out the consultation document for the long-term plan, which is probably a little bit more important in the short term.
Apologies, Nathan, I missed you.
But I want to just go back to Kathleen's, Councillor Philo's comment. I don't know if you remember, it was so long ago, about you used the word stable and central government in a sentence, and I don't think those words ever go together. They're not stable. It doesn't matter who's in power. And I woke up this morning with a bit of a sore neck, and I thought it might have been the tossing and turning from the 2-week-old son. But no, it was the government constantly pulling policies left, right and centre around our water. This is the third policy in less than 3 years, or third reform attempt, and each one's got a slightly weaker name, and I think this one's got the weakest of the lot. It's the sort of something you'd present to a kindergarten, and I think the kindergartners probably would do a better job. But I think just bringing back to what this whole paper is all about, I fully support the direction we're going with this, as you know, meaningless as it may be. I think we're better together than we are apart with our local government colleagues. But I will beat the same drum that we've beaten for the last 2.5 years, most of us around the table, that central government need to support us. And if we've got 72 territorial authorities around the country that are struggling to fund their water, I don't think it's a coincidence that they're all hopeless with money. I think it's a nationwide disaster, and we should probably get some help.
Thank you, Councillor Ward, and apologies for missing you earlier. Councillor Leggett, did you have another?
Yeah, I do as well, yeah. No. We only need one speech. We've heard from Jeff and we've heard from Councillor Waddle. All I wanted, look, I'm confident in officers going forward, understanding the things that we've been saying to them. I just wanted to reiterate one of the things that Wendy said, which I think is the most important thing going forward, and that's your comment about scale, Wendy. You know, if either way, whatever happens under any scenario, communities are going to pay, Jeff, for this. Absolutely. Yeah. So, but you know, so I think scale is important to get, and to get economies of scale if they're able to be driven from an entity like this, and that's going to be really important in getting together not just the Wellington Water participants at the moment, the shareholders in Wellington Water, but a much larger organisation is going to be really important, I think.
All right. I don't believe... Oh, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah. Look, economies of scale are great, but when you look at what's happening in Britain with their large water service organisations, you think, holy hell, are economies of scale really going to work? I'm not so convinced of that. And we talk about balance sheet separation. That'll be lovely for council. It won't help the ratepayers one iota, because they'll just be getting a water bill as well as a rates bill, and it'll be costing a bloody fortune.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. All right. I think everyone who's wanted to speak has spoken. And yes, I guess this comment from me, I think that the MOU is an important, necessary first step. Absolutely support that. Support the comments that have been made around cost. And hopefully central government remembers the reason that this reform process started is because councils can't afford it, and adding more costs onto us is not going to fix that problem. So with that, I am going to put this motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the items that we have on our agenda today. Just noticing we're moving into workshop. We will close with karakia at the end of the workshop. So close the meeting at 9:28. Thank you.